I used to think I already understood the Philippines before I ever tried to understand it. I thought it was poor. Not just struggling, but permanently behind. A place people leave, not a place people build. That image felt so normal, so widely accepted, that I never questioned where it came from. I never asked who benefited from telling that story. I never asked what was missing. Then one day, that certainty cracked. It didn't happen all at once. It happened quietly. In clips, in comments, in late-night scrolling. I saw cities that didn't match the headlines. I heard people speak with a confidence that didn't sound like survival. I noticed something unsettling. The Philippines didn't behave like a country that had given up. And that's when I realized something uncomfortable. Maybe I wasn't seeing the Philippines. Maybe I was seeing a stereotype that had been repeated so many times it started to feel like truth. When people talk about poverty, they usually talk about numbers. GDP, income, rankings. But those numbers never tell you how a country feels when you stand inside it. They don't tell you how people talk about their future. They don't tell you what kind of ambition lives in everyday conversations. They don't tell you how a nation responds when the world looks down on it. The Philippines feels alive in a way that's hard to explain if you've never paid attention. There's movement everywhere. Construction cranes cutting into the skyline. Call centers running through the night. Small businesses packed into tight streets. Adapting, expanding, surviving, and sometimes thriving. You don't see resignation in the faces. You see momentum. And that's confusing if you're expecting poverty. Because poverty, real poverty, drains people. It slows them down. It flattens imagination. But the Philippines feels restless, loud, creative, almost defiant. Walk through Manila and you'll see extremes sitting side by side. Yes, there are slums. No one should pretend otherwise. But just a few blocks away are financial districts that operate on global time zones. Offices where young professionals manage accounts for companies thousands of miles away. People earning in dollars while living in pesos. That gap alone changes everything. The Philippines isn't just connected to the global economy. It's wired into it. English flows naturally here, not as a luxury, not as a marker of elitism, but as a daily tool. Children grow up switching languages without thinking about it. Conversations slide between English and Filipino with ease. That single fact quietly opens doors that many developing countries never get access to. Outsourcing didn't just create jobs, it created a new middle class, a generation that doesn't wait for permission to participate in the world economy, a generation that logs into global systems while living local lives. And yet, when people outside talk about the Philippines, they rarely mention this. Instead, they talk about poverty porn, floods, typhoons, corruption, as if those things are the whole story. But resilience is not poverty. Adaptation is not failure. The Philippines is one of the most disaster-prone countries on Earth. Typhoons come every year. Earthquakes are a real threat. And yet, the country keeps rebuilding. Not because it's forced to, but because it knows how. There's a muscle memory for survival that turns into innovation over time. You see it in architecture designed to bend instead of break. You see it in communities that reorganize overnight. You see it in families that pool resources, share responsibility, and move forward together. Western narratives often misunderstand this. They see close family ties and call it dependence. They see communal living and call it underdevelopment. But what they're really looking at is a social system that cushions people when institutions fail. In the Philippines, people are the safety net, and that changes how risk works. When failure doesn't mean total collapse, people are more willing to try, to start businesses, to migrate temporarily, to send money home and reinvest in their communities. Remittances don't just support families. They build houses. They fund education. They seed local economies. The Philippines doesn't just export labor. It imports experience. Millions of Filipinos work abroad, yes, but they return with skills, capital, and global awareness. They come back different, and they bring the world with them. This creates a strange contradiction. Outsiders see migration as evidence of weakness. Insiders see it as strategy, and strategies compound over time. Look at Filipino culture, and you'll notice something else that doesn't match the poverty narrative. Humor. Constant, sharp, self-aware humor. People joke about struggle, not because they're numb to it, but because they refuse to let it define them. Laughter becomes resistance, a way of saying, we're still here. Music spills out of everywhere. Singing isn't performance, it's communication. Stories travel through songs, through jokes, through food shared at plastic tables on the side of the road. And food alone tells a story of adaptation. Filipino cuisine is a record of survival, taking what's available, mixing influences, stretching ingredients, turning scarcity into flavor. That skill doesn't disappear when conditions improve. It evolves. Now look at the younger generation. They are not waiting. Young Filipinos are building startups, creating content, freelancing globally, monetizing skills that didn't even exist 20 years ago. Social media didn't just entertain them. It gave them visibility. Suddenly, you don't need permission from local gatekeepers to reach a global audience. A teenager in Cebu can build a following larger than a traditional media outlet. A freelancer in Davao can earn more than local executives. A YouTuber can reshape how the world sees their country. And they're doing exactly that. They are pushing back against the old story. But here's the most shocking part. Despite all of this, the Philippines doesn't brag. It doesn't sell itself loudly. It doesn't package its success in a way that makes outsiders comfortable. And because of that, the old narrative survives. People mistake humility for weakness. They confuse warmth with simplicity. They see kindness and assume softness. But kindness is not the absence of strength. In many cases, it's the result of it. The Philippines has learned how to live with uncertainty, how to smile without pretending everything is perfect, how to move forward without waiting for the world's approval. And that's what shocked me the most. Not that the Philippines isn't poor in places. It is. Not that inequality doesn't exist. It does. But that poverty is not the defining force of this country. Momentum is. Potential is. Adaptability is. The Philippines is not a country stuck in the past. It's a country quietly preparing for a future most people aren't paying attention to yet. And maybe that's the real reason the world keeps getting it wrong. Because it's easier to look down than to look closer. And once you finally do look closer, the old story falls apart.